and it has massively amplified the growth that we have in our user base in the app. In fact, in the last year, 10 months or so of which we've been producing these videos, we've grown by over 1,200%. I left my job at Lamborghini Atlanta as Director of Sales in November of 2015. I had just kind of had my fill of the 60 to 80 hour work weeks, and I had a 1-year-old son at home that I was not happy to only see for 15 or 20 minutes a day, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall that the dealership was probably going to be sold in the next few months, and I knew that being the most expensive line item on the P&L made some liabilities for my employment. So I started to look at other options, but I really just decided, look, I'm going to take a step back, I'm just going to leave without knowing what's next, and that's what I did. And so I went home and just kind of started to speak to friends, and I had made it a habit of getting 10 to 15 of my good friends that had different sets of skills and different backgrounds together to brainstorm entrepreneurial ideas. And so after I left the dealership, some of those conversations sort of intensified. And I had gotten together with Dave Black, who was my co-driver for the New York to LA rally, an ex-Apple guy and a great database architect, and also with Dan Wong, who had ridden with us and was a great iOS developer, and Kevin Bandy, who was a consummate car guy and a great web developer that I'd used personally and we'd used at the dealership. And we added Peter Saddington, who you now know as the Bitcoin Lambo guy, but he had come along and had been interested in some Lamborghinis, and just I knew that he was an entrepreneur and had some great backgrounds in the tech space. So I got that team together and we talked about a bunch of ideas, one of which was VINwiki. And it was based on a lot of the tactics I had used in selling cars at the dealership, because I kind of recognized that the curation of a car's history went beyond what Carfax and AutoCheck do, particularly in the ends of the spectrum. On really cheap cars or really expensive cars, Carfax kind of breaks down. I always kind of likened it to an SAT score. If it's really good, it means absolutely nothing. If it's bad, it means you need to look a little bit further. But when I was trying to sell cars, I learned that I could easily overcome whatever that was or augment it with what I knew about a car. And that became a lot more useful, a lot more valuable to a buyer, and became a lot better call to action than just what I could do when they said, show me the Carfax. And so we knew that there was an opportunity in the space, and we also knew that stakeholders needed to be empowered to store all the information they could that might otherwise just be poured into social media or just left in a camera roll. Because it's interesting, because even though we get a lot of requests and we appreciate them for a VINwiki version that's global, that's in whatever market people are in that watch our videos, that's not necessarily an immediate need the way it is in the US, because really, other than the US, the UK, and Australia, vehicle history is not that big of a deal, because either all the cars are so bad that all that matters is that the car happens to run right now, or all the cars are so good that if a car is legally registered for road use, you don't really have to worry. In the US and in some other countries, you can have a car legally on the road that doesn't belong there, that has a terrible past, that's been damaged really badly, and that hasn't been repaired and isn't in good enough shape to really be used safely. And that's why we've invited people to come along and kind of tell the story of their cars and the cars they know something about. And we kind of decided that was the direction we wanted to go in January of 2016. And over the next kind of 90 or so days, Dave and Dan in particular really spent a ton of time building the first version of the app. We were just looking for some kind of proof of concept, really an MVP, a minimally viable product, to see how this was going to be received. And in April and May of 2016, we ran a 60-day, 100-user beta test of the app. And in that period of time, we made 46 major revisions to the app, adding features and changing things around and making things a little bit more clear, and really tailoring it to the feedback that we got from our users. And then we launched it in June of 2016, 2 years ago this week. And we had a big launch party here at the warehouse and just had a lot of fun just bringing on different people and kind of introducing this idea to the Atlanta car community and looking at different ways we were going to evangelize it to the country at large. Over time, we started to learn just how people were using it, what features they were embracing, and really what the activity level looked like, because we had no idea exactly how people were going to use the app and what kind of value they were going to see. But we started seeing all types of interesting data coming in, and we enjoyed that. Obviously, we like to see the different ways that people were taking this fairly open-ended platform and using it to their own needs, their own interest, and their own recreation. I mean, it was something that we were surprised to see initially, because a really active VINwiki user is posting 50 to 100 times a day not the once or twice a week we kind of anticipated when we designed it, but they're just taking on and embracing the features and building out lists and building out the history of their car and other cars they know something about. And so we've loved to see the different ways people use the app, and we've also loved to see kind of what the best strategies are for us to market and introduce the app to other people. Because obviously the power comes from the volume of the user base, and that's like any social app. The more people you have on, the more value there is, and it's kind of a chicken egg problem that we've had to deal with over the last couple of years. And in that first year, we really started to learn what the app was, how people used it, and how it could grow. And we were growing at about 1 or 2% a week, so by the end of that year, we were at about 5,000 users. Not the virality we'd hoped for, but certainly it was growing. People were loving it, and we were having a really, really good experience. And we had done things on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all the other things, a lot of event marketing at car shows, Cars and Coffee and things like that. And it was working well, but our cost of user acquisition was really, really high. And so we started to think, look, we've got to let this grow. We certainly don't need to close it, turn it off or anything like that, but we're still a bit of a long way from this thing doing anything for us financially. We said, we haven't done any video content marketing, and we haven't really done anything on YouTube beyond some just simple explainer videos. So let's look at that and let's think of a concept that kind of illustrates what the app is all about, but puts it into this entertaining medium. So I got a bunch of friends together and we came to the warehouse and we just sat around for a day telling car stories, and we just started releasing them every day. And the growth was obviously phenomenal, and we appreciate all of you that have come along and watched our videos, subscribed, and especially those that have downloaded the app, because we found that it was much, much better in terms of really telling people what VINwiki is all about than we had ever been able to otherwise. And we've obviously developed a huge audience here, and it has massively amplified the growth that we have in our user base in the app. In fact, in the last year, 10 months or so of which we've been producing these videos, we've grown by over 1,200%. So we're now at a little over 60,000 users in the app. And it continues to grow by 1 or 2% a day, and we're just loving that and loving that people are continuing to find new and exciting ways to use the app. And it's interesting to kind of look back in a short-term retrospective at what these last 2 years have been, from the meetings in my house and to local restaurants and just brainstorming things around, thinking about what it might be, and then seeing it become really its own thing. Not wildly different than what we anticipated, but certainly being interpreted in new ways every single day. So we thank you guys so much for being a part of this growth, of this life cycle of a business. And we don't know what a year from now looks like. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. There's a lot of things we explore, and we've always known that we're never going to be the end-all be-all of vehicle history, but we have hoped to be, and we are becoming, a great way for people to contribute information to the history of a car that they know something about, or a car that they love, and using the features that we have to add value and make it easier for someone to make a decision to buy a car in the future. Because we know that the less imagination that has to be used in kind of piecing together the history of a car, the easier it is for a buyer to commit, to say, I'm comfortable with this used car and I want to buy it. And hopefully to continue curating and adding to its history in this kind of repository of vehicle data. So if you haven't already, I hope that you'll go ahead and download our app from iTunes or from the Google Play Store. And I know there are some bugs and some things, and we're constantly trying to work through that. As you'd imagine, it can be an expensive proposition, but we are always looking out for different ways we can add more data, add more value, and find more ways to help you add to the history of your car and the cars you love. So thank you so much for coming along with us on this journey. It's certainly been a wild 2 years filled with a lot of things, this included, that I never expected, but that's the nature of small business. It's the nature of startups, and I'm eternally grateful for all of you who have watched, subscribed, download the app, but I just thank you for coming along with us as we change the way the world looks at automotive history.